Hi, I'm Coach Neill,
And I'm Coach Katie.
and this is our weekly nutrition talk with Liberty Sports Performance, and this is week 4. In week 4, we're talking about calories and how to count calories, what a calorie means, and how it can affect your performance as an athlete. In the past 3 weeks, we've talked about our macronutrients. We've talked about fats, we've talked about carbs, and we've talked about proteins and how those are important to your body and the different mechanisms through which your body uses those nutritional, what we call our macronutrients, to perform your daily tasks. Now we're going to kind of talk about how we use those macronutrients overall, and really this is going to apply more to our weight gain, weight loss, how to maintain muscle mass in season, kind of really what more the general population thinks of when they think of nutrition, because in general, most people, when they're thinking about nutrition, are trying to either gain or lose weight. And for athletes, that's often an important topic too. And so we want to make sure that you have the tools to do that effectively and appropriately. We want to make sure you understand the amount of food you're putting in your body and what that needs to look like. And we want you to understand how to achieve your goals as an athlete, whatever they may be, through the use of counting calories and how to do that the right way. So the first thing we need to talk about is, what is a calorie? A calorie is just a unit of measurement. It's not good, it's not bad, it's a way we measure the energy that you put into your body and that you take out. The technical term for a calorie is the amount of energy required to raise 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. And so we get that from the realm of science, and they actually use calories to measure things other than food and body expenditure. It's just kind of become associated with nutrition. And so your body requires a certain amount of energy just sitting here. Now imagine if you had a car and you left the engine running. Well, your car is going to burn a little bit of gas just sitting there in the parking lot. And then when you take off and accelerate, it's going to use more. And then as you slow down, it's going to use less. Well, your body kind of works the same way. If your body wasn't working right now and functioning, you would die. And so your body uses calories just to breathe, just to maintain body heat, to maintain all the processes that it does just by sitting there. Even if you're sleeping, you're using calories. And then as you do exercise, your calorie expenditure goes up, and as you're resting, it goes down, just like we used in our car example earlier. And so everybody, depending on their size, their height, their weight, their age, their gender, amount of exercise they're doing, genetics, burns a different amount of calories every day. And so we try to estimate this amount as much as possible. And we do this through something called the basal metabolic rate. And what this is it's a number that you can use a scientific formula to find, that takes into account your height, your age, your sex, your weight, and your activity levels. And then it takes all those factors in and spits out a number that is the approximate calorie load, so the number of calories that you need to maintain your body weight every day. And so traditionally you think of, everybody needs 2,000 calories in a day. And that's not true at all, because that's just an average of the average person in the US. Well, when you're thinking about high school athletes, they're burning a whole lot more calories than your average person. In general, they're probably weighing a little bit more than your average 150-pound male. So that 2,000 number isn't even a great starting place. So it's much better to go online. There's a lot of websites that can do this, and we're going to show you a few at the end, where you can actually go in and plug in all that data, and it'll give you, hey, you need this exact calories per day to maintain where you're at. And then what you can do from there is you can add 20% or 10%, drop 10% or 20%, and that's how you're going to either gain weight or lose weight, is taking that basal metabolic rate and then going above it and below it to find that little bit of calorie bump you need to increase. Now, everybody thinks about calories in through eating and how many calories am I consuming. That is the most important number, because it's really, really hard, probably impossible, to outwork a bad diet. It's not that hard to eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories. It's not, especially if you're doing it through sweets and fats and really bad for you foods. It is really hard to burn 5,000 calories. And we'll put it this way, really, really intense exercise. So like a football practice, high intensity workout, really intense lifting weights or pushing sleds, like a CrossFit style workout. The max you're going to burn with a 200 to 250 pound guy is going to be 800 to 1,000 calories. And that's probably on the high end.
In an hour.
And so imagine 2 hours of the most intense exercise possible. You're only burning 2,000 calories. And if you can consume 5,000 in a day, well, all of a sudden, I'm even if I'm working my tail off, 2 workouts a day, you're not going to match that. Okay, you're not going to be able to burn that. Now, on the flip side of that, if you are outside in a football practice or going to the gym in a basketball practice, and you're in 2 to 3 hours of intense workout per day, and you're a guy or a girl who's needing to gain weight, you have to take that into account and say, you know what? I'm burning 2,000 calories out there in a day. I've got to add that in on top of what I'm already eating, because eating just what I'm going to maintain sitting here isn't going to be enough for me. So that is a great starting place to get that basal metabolic rate, and then to go from there. And like we said earlier, there's other factors too. There's genetics plays a big role, the rate of your metabolism. So even though you start with that number, it's always adjustable, and that's why it's important if you are trying to gain or lose weight, that you need to weigh yourself regularly, so you can say, okay, here's my diet plan and we're following it. Now is it working, essentially? So if you're 3 weeks in and you've calculated out that you need 3,500 calories a day to gain 1 pound per week, and you haven't gained a pound per week, then you need more than that. There just may be some factors that we didn't account for. So then you can raise it another 5%, another 10% from that number that we got. And that's another important thing we need to talk about too, is how much weight is appropriate to gain or lose per week. I'm going to let Katie talk about that for us.
So calorie counting can be your best friend and the worst enemy at the same time. And so normally what we would say is gaining 1 pound or losing 1 pound a week is really healthy. Anything greater than that, and obviously depending on your size and different things, is starting to be questionable if that's a healthy way of doing things. And something that I just want to talk about is just counting calories, especially male athletes too, especially in performance sports like wrestling or something like that, where body weight is a big thing. But even just female athletes, counting calories can sound like one of those fads or something that can turn into something down the road. And I'm just gonna say this from a personal story. I used to count calories, and I actually suffered from disordered eating because I wasn't educated on what they were doing. I was so worried about I couldn't go over 1,200 calories in a day, and that was just the number that I had set for myself because that's what sounded good, because 2,000 was just too many, and I just wasn't educated in that. And so once I learned that, my body went through a lot of detrimental things. And so once I learned and was educated on what calorie counting was, it was so much more beneficial. And so being able to count calories appropriately, what type of calories you're putting into your body, just like we've talked about these past couple weeks of carbs, fats, and proteins, of making sure you have those right numbers, because you can get addicted to counting calories. And then that can cause a whole other snowball effect that can be detrimental, because if you start counting them and you're not doing the right thing, you can actually have muscle breakdown and performance decreases and a lot of different other negative factors. And so if you do want to count calories, I highly encourage you to talk to your doctor or people who are certified in nutrition or something like that with some background, so that you understand and you're doing that safely, because it can be huge in athletic performance, and we want to make sure that that's the road that we go down and not one that's an addiction that can lead to disordered eating or other detrimental effects to your body.
Yeah, and it's really important she touched on the 1 pound per week. The reason that is when you go underneath that number we talked about earlier, that basal metabolic rate, you're starving your body. And if you start with a 10% drop from what you need, right? So let's say you need 2,000 calories and you drop that down by 200, so you're going 1,800. You're going to lose weight, but you're going to do it slow enough that you're not sacrificing your ability to perform. Whereas if you drop it down to 1,200, you're going down to, I don't know the math there, but it's going to be a 30 or 40% drop. Well, now your body is literally starving. And so not only, it's going to burn some fat because it's starving, but you're also going to be in a situation where it's going to start sacrificing really important metabolic functions, hormonal,
Yes.
energy levels, your ability to think. And so you're putting yourself in danger to suffer in the classroom. You're putting yourself in danger to suffer in your performance on the court or the field or the track, whatever it may be. There's something that we'll touch on eventually called the female athlete triad. And it is this combination of high performance athletes, poor nutrition, a lack of adequate nutrition. And it actually leads, I'm not going to get into details here, you can look this up on your own, but it leads to some issues reproductively later in your life.
Challenges your body, because remember, like Coach Neill said, like the basal metabolic rate is what the bare minimum of what your body needs to function every day. And so if you don't give them your body the bare minimum to function, then other things are going to start taking effect, and it really affects the female body to some degree. That can cause later consequences down the road too.
Yeah, so definitely that's something we'll be discussing with our ladies at some point. But there is more of a danger in going under than a lot of people realize, and it's also a slippery slope because we're creatures who rewards encourage us, right? We're motivated by seeing results, and that's why the weight room can be so effective. That's why sports can be so effective, because you put hard work into something and then you see the results from that work, and psychologically that can become addictive. Well, the same thing can happen, especially if you feel like you need to be skinnier. Well, you start seeing, hey, I cut my calories by this much and I lost 3 pounds and I feel like I look good in the mirror now. Well, let's do it more. And all of a sudden you're on a slippery slope. So like Coach Katie said, really important that there is a time and a place to gain weight. There's a time and a place to lose weight, but have people in your life who are experts about it to help you do it the right way and to make sure that you're not taking it to a level that it shouldn't be taken to. Now, appropriately counting your calories is a really useful tool. We feel we need to warn you about it, but it doesn't mean don't do it. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing to do. And luckily, we live in a day and age where there's a lot of really cool tools available to athletes where you can easily count your calories. You can easily get a really good snapshot of how many calories am I getting per day? What kind of calories are those? What percentage is fat? What percentage is protein? What percentage are carbs? And so I recommend a couple of apps for our athletes if they want to get more serious about their nutrition. The first two both kind of do the same thing, and it's just two options depending on which one works best for you. There's an app that's free called MyFitnessPal, and that's a great app because it allows you to count your calories per day, and it has a lot of preloaded meals that you could get at fast food restaurants. It's got a barcode scanner, so if you get something prepackaged at the grocery store, you just take a snapshot of it and it loads all that information in as well. It also has a lot of different, like let's say you're at lunch here at Liberty and you're getting mashed potatoes and chicken. If you can kind of guesstimate how much is on your plate, you just plug in the grams and the item and it's going to estimate your calories for you. And then it'll tell you at the end of the day, hey, you hit 2,500 calories, 3,000 calories, whatever you need to be. And even if you don't have, like, let's say you didn't go through and do your BMR where you're figuring out that's your basal metabolic rate, just shorter, that you didn't figure out how much you need. But at least if you do that, like I encouraged all of our athletes this week, hey, download the app and just put stuff in and let's just get a snapshot.
Just track it a little bit and just see kind of what it looks like, because sometimes you don't know. Like I have a bag of popcorn and how many calories in that? I have no idea. And so you just put it in there and you start messing around and then you start becoming more aware. And again, not to get addicted or all hung up on that. Like I'm a big believer in everything's good in moderation. Yeah. So just understanding that you're human and things happen, but setting your goals appropriately too. But you don't know unless you start kind of asking questions and figuring it out and plugging it in a little bit.
So even if there's not a huge goal that you're trying to accomplish, just knowing, hey, I'm usually eating about 3,000 calories a day gives you a good starting point. Yeah. My Macros is another app that does the same thing. Now, this is a paid app. MyFitnessPal is free. My Macros is paid, but and I think when I first downloaded it, it was like $3 and maybe $5 now. But it has a few more tools. It allows you to get more in detail and in depth. And from my experience, it's worked for more of the athletes I've recommended it to. A lot of them have just had technical issues with MyFitnessPal for whatever reason, and so My Macros is a second option if you get in MyFitnessPal and it's losing your information or not letting you log in or something like that. It's just a second option there. Now there's a third app we've started recommending called Eat to Win, and that's EAT, the number 2, win. And this is a cool app because we talked about that BMR earlier. This will actually program it for you. So you can go in, put your height, weight, age, and it'll go ahead and do the calculation of how much you need to eat above or below that rate for you. So if you get in there and say, okay, I'm 6'5", 260 pounds, I'm trying to gain 10 pounds by December. Yeah, I'm putting in Katie's numbers here. And then you say, hey, I'm 30 years old and whatever you put in there. It will spit out, you need this many calories per day, and it even divides it into snacks and meals and the number of calories per each. And then the second cool thing about this is you can go in there and it'll give you options, tons of options to hit whatever that meal is. So if it wants you to have 450 calories in your afternoon snack, it will give you 8 different snacks you could do that'll hit that. Awesome. It'll give you vegan options. It'll give you fast food options, restaurant options. So when you're sitting there going, okay, I need 400 calories, I need to be this much protein, this much fat, this much carbs. What does that look like? Well, it just spits it out right there in front of you. And you can have, it's dummy proof to be able to craft for yourself a really good nutrition plan.
Yeah, and it's just a good starting point too, because once you start getting familiar with snacks and what they do and how that affects your body, then you really, like, to me, I fizzled out of using an app at some point. And so, because I knew that, in the afternoon I needed the peanut butter and the banana and apple or something like that. Then you start just getting to know foods and getting to know your body and how it adapts and what you need when. So I think it's a cool starting place to lay a foundation for you moving forward too.
So that's all we really have to talk about with calories this week. It's not, the math can be a little intimidating. It can be, it honestly can be a very intensive process if you're doing it to the extreme, but you don't have to do it to the extreme. You just have to be aware of, hey, what am I putting in my body? What am I putting out of my body? And what does it look like to make sure I'm getting the information I need and the calories I need to make sure that I'm accomplishing my goals? Mm-hmm. If you have any further questions on any of this, me and Coach Katie are always available. I meet with athletes all the time on how to reach their goals nutritionally and how to get to the point where they want to be. And always consult your doctor, and you've got resources. Okay, this stuff's important, but you're not in it alone. So if you have any questions, let us know, and go Warriors.